Since working in a code editor is a big part of the Photics Web guide, a good place to get started is reviewing the settings for Visual Studio Code. While there are lots of other apps to make websites, this one's been my favorite, at least for now. Customization is one of the main reasons why I like Visual Studio Code. So the first place to start is to locate the settings. On a Mac, they can be accessed from the Code section of the toolbar, then Preferences, and then select the Settings option. A more graphical interface appears with an overwhelming amount of options. Since there are so many settings, I don't like to edit them this way. Fortunately, the settings can be edited directly in the settings.json file. That's JavaScript object notation. It's a little technical, but not too bad, especially when editing the file in Visual Studio Code. There's a little icon at the top right in order to show the JSON file, and then another button to open the file in the main window. When working in this mode, hovering over a setting shows the help text. Also, there's auto-completion, so that's nice. Anyway, I alphabetized the settings, and right at the top is probably one of the most important settings. Turn off that AI stuff. A lot of these settings are just to disable AI. There's really been a push into using AI tools, but with the Photics Web Guide, it's not about that. The analogy is that you should learn math before using a calculator. You need to be able to think for yourself. That's why I have the AI stuff turned off. This is one of those settings. Perhaps one day I'll set up a local AI agent, but right now I don't want AI touching my code. The next line is editor.accessibilitySupport, and the value is off. I'm not using a screen reader, so I don't have this setting enabled. You'll see that this is the theme. Visual Studio Code can do a lot, but I'm basically turning off many of those features. That happens with the next line, editor.detectIndentation, and the value is set to false. Because I don't want Visual Studio Code adding indentation when I don't want it. Instead, I manually control the formatting by using the Shift plus Option plus F keyboard combination. I suppose this one is debatable as it is tedious doing it manually. But I like to control when the formatting happens. That way, if I see something strange, I can fix it right away, instead of wondering what happened later. The editor.fontFamily setting controls which font is shown in the editor. It's set to use a monospaced font. A fixed width font is important as that alignment can help with coding. When all of the characters line up, it's easier to spot mistakes. At least I think so. But hey, if you want to use something like Comic Sans, that's your decision. And just a side note, when working with Visual Studio Code on a Mac using lockdown mode, the emoji weren't displaying. I fixed that problem by using Google's emoji instead. With the font installed and the name spelled correctly, emoji could be seen once again. This next setting may trigger a debate. Do you like spaces or tabs for indenting your code? I think tabs have significant advantages, but it just looks so strange with invisible characters shown. These are my settings. You might not agree with some of them. The main idea is to get you thinking about your preferred way to work. That's what's happening here. By reviewing this setting, I'm really starting to question if tabs are better. Here's another example about carefully considering a setting, as I don't remember exactly why both of these settings are here. The second one is related to cutting and pasting from the Apple Pages app. While working on the book, I went in a direction that was probably not a good idea. I'd make changes in the book, and then I'd paste those changes back into my code examples. That's when these weird characters would show up. Although not seeing the unusual line terminator pop-up has been nice. So that second setting is staying. But that first setting, I don't remember the reason Unicode highlight ambiguous characters was given a value of false. That's precisely why I like to look at the settings in its pure JSON form. It reminds me of previous changes. If those changes are no longer needed, then maybe I should remove it. But right now, nah. The next setting is word wrap. I feel like text wrapping is the norm. I'm surprised that this setting is even necessary. But basically, if you don't want your code to continue going off screen, then it can wrap to the next line. See, this is line 13 and this is line 14. Even though they are using 4 lines of space, there are only 2 lines of code. It's a readability thing. Using the horizontal scroll bar would get tedious and mistakes could be missed. This next setting is dangerous living. Explorer.confirmDelete was set to false. I use Apple's Time Machine, so I'm not too worried about accidentally deleting a file. Here's what that looks like in an unmodified state. It seems I dislike any pop-ups. But again, I'm not really worried. See, the file is gone. The file is back. The file is gone again. The file is back again. That's me having fun with the undo command. Again, these are my settings. Your settings can be different. Well, one setting that I like, but other people might dislike, is files.autoSave with a value of after delay. I have Visual Studio Code set to automatically save my work. That's because I don't want to forget to save the file and then accidentally lose all that work. The risk is that the file could be changed in unintentional ways. What if existing work gets overwritten? Again, I'm relying on Time Machine. In the rare event that problem occurs, I can just go back to an earlier version. That's also a job for Git, which is the next block of settings. I have it set to autofetch, confirm sync is set to false, the default save location is my desktop, and a bunch of other stuff. It's actually not relevant here, because Git is not installed on this Mac. I don't want to install Apple's command line tools just to install Git. And since Git is not installed on my Mac, the Git ignore missing Git warning setting has a value of true. A lot of the other settings are related to turning off AI stuff. That goes back to the theme. No AI, no pop-ups, no unnecessary features. Although I think these are related to an extension that I'm not using here. That's highlighted by listing the settings in a lighter color. I'm using the livePreview extension. livePreview.notifyOnOpenLooseFile was set to false. I didn't remember how that got there, so I looked at the help text. It says, whether to notify the user when opening a preview for a file that is not part of the currently opened workspace. And here, with the Bible web app, the whole directory was opened. I didn't see a warning, but with the Weather Alerts webpage, it did show a message. That looks annoying. So I turned that off. Maybe in a rush you dismissed an alert, but you didn't realize that you were modifying a setting. Or perhaps you want to revert a previously changed setting, but you don't know the name of the setting that was changed. That's why directly editing the JSON file can be preferred. And with this setting reviewed, it's going to stay. This next setting is related to security. While I generally don't like pop-ups, this one I tolerate. It's a reminder to be careful about which workspaces are opened. So, when opening folders or installing extensions in Visual Studio Code, use caution. Telemetry is another matter of trust. I don't want all that data being sent. I turned it off. If Microsoft wants to know how I use Visual Studio Code, they can watch this video. The window.autoDetectColorScheme setting has a value of true. That's a dark mode thing. If my Mac switches to a dark appearance, then Visual Studio Code changes its appearance accordingly. The window.commandCenter setting was set to false because... Why was this set to false? Ah, that's why. What is that thing? I don't want that. I try to maximize workspace. It's less distracting, and I can see more code at once. And not wanting to be distracted is the reason for updating workbench.colorCustomizations. The status bar settings are grouped together, and when disabling those color changes, the status bar turns purple. Yuck. That is quite annoying. So I just changed the colors. The next 2 settings were covered in an earlier Photics TV video. So I'll just leave this right here and take a break. Did you see that video? Basically, I want SVG files to open as code, not as an image. The rest of the settings are related to Workbench. The first one, it says it's related to the integrated browser. I have it set to false because the icon is where I need it when working with HTML files. I can use livePreview or the integrated browser. The second setting seems to be related to AI, so I just turned that one off. The next feature was also turned off as I don't need to see the hint text when opening a new tab in Visual Studio Code. This one might be surprising, but I didn't like those extra icons at the top right of the title bar, so I turned them off. The layoutControl.enabled setting was given a value of false. This happens a lot with the app. There will be an update, and then there will be a new feature that I don't like. Fortunately, I can easily turn this one off. That happened with the next setting as OpenInAgents is not enabled. However, the help text says unknown configuration setting. I'm not sure what happened there, but it reminds me that features can be changed or even removed. That's another reason why it's a good idea to periodically review the settings.json file. The next two settings are my preferred themes, one for dark mode and another for light mode. There are several options for color themes. I picked Visual Studio Dark for the dark mode theme and Light Plus for the light mode theme. As for the rest of the settings, the secondary sidebar was hidden, another AI setting was turned off, and the startup editor was set to none. This leads to a nice summary of the logic in choosing the settings. Maximize the workspace, minimize the distractions, and turn off those features that I don't want.